everyone. I'm David Robbins. This is my friend, New York literary agent Katharine Sands. Welcome to the Critiki-Bar, where a writer and an agent walk into a bar. Katharine is with the Sarah Jane Fryman literary agency in New York. I'm a published author. I've been teaching at the university level for most of 20 years, advanced creative writing. And what Katharine and I do here in the Critiki-Bar is folks walk on up. They got to buy us a drink. We'll put it on your tab. And we will read your first page. And from that first page, Katharine and I will assess it for two things. I'll assess it for craft, and ask Katharine will assess it for career. So she'll talk about the business aspects of it, the sellability of it, and she'll make suggestions, and I'll translate those suggestions into techniques and actual steps you can take to do what the New York agent says you should do. So Katharine, say hi.
Hi, David.
I meant to the folks watching, Katharine.
I'm delighted to be here in the Critiki-Bar with my beloved friend David Robbins, who is the author of many brilliant books. He's probably best known for War of the Rats, and he has also done an extraordinary 2-book presentation on the founding of Israel called Isaac's Beacon and the Shortest Road.
And now that the preliminaries are over, John and Katharine, shall we proceed into the first one? I'll read it and you start. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, here we go. October 8, 1980, Kerala. Is your old revolver, Kali, still working? Bring it with you, fully loaded. Vasu wondered if his friend had a premonition. Did he know that something bad was going to happen? Or could it be that someone had threatened him? But then, who would dare hurt a freedom fighter beloved by the people, a man who had sacrificed all but his life for his country? The gusting winds caused the raindrops to slant and enter the half-open window of the car, exploding on Vasu's face and forcing him to bend down to roll up the glass. Vasu was seated in the front passenger seat of the car. An old white ambassador, his son Murali, who was driving the car, also rolled up his window. The heavy monsoon rains had drenched the roads, and the rainwater concealed the large potholes, which reappeared exactly the same time every year, as if on a fixed timetable. Vasu's head bumped against the roof as the car hit a large pothole. Thank God the road is familiar, Vasu thought, or else driving in this treacherous weather would be dangerous. He'd estimated it would take them 2 hours to get from their home in the coastal town Alpuja in central Kerala to the town of Vaikom, where his friend Karnan lived. The bad weather would add another hour. Murali had been driving with his father for about 40 minutes, but they were yet to exchange a single word since they left home. Vasu knew that Murali was unhappy with the conservative views that his parents had about the choice of a life partner. The heated argument that Murali had with his mother, Jalaja, this morning on the topic had all but guaranteed that there would be not much of their usual father-son small talk on politics during the drive. Katharine, reaction?
Reaction, my first thought is, I don't know much about the country of Kerala, forgive me. So you have two exotic points that you're introducing. One is 1980, the other is a country with which many of us may not be familiar. And so my first thought is that you'd want us to understand something of the culture and of 1980, which remember could be 10 years before the agent or the editor has actually been born. So it will take on an historic quality. I think weather reports are tricky to open with, and basically what happens is a car ride. So even though I think you've established your characters, there's a lot more confusion than emergent for me, because I don't quite understand what the conservative views of 1980 Kerala might be, and I need to know that from page 1 just to become involved and excited about the story. So the fact that this is a usual father-son, they're really, as you say in the last line on this page, it's not usual to me at all. This is very, very exotic. And so the fact that we understand that that the father is a freedom fighter, that's also very, very interesting. If he's a beloved freedom fighter, some kind of celebrity perhaps, or someone who's really making a difference in his culture, um, that seemed to be the most interesting part of this, but I'm missing so much more about what it means to be a freedom fighter and what it means for a freedom fighter to be taking a trip with his son. I'd keep reading though.
Yeah, my turn. Oh, well, we'll go with that. So stay there for a sec. You said you keep reading. Tell us why. That's important.
I would, because I'm also somewhat intrigued by, do I want to say Vassel and what his world is? Also, one thing I'd also point out, we have a lot of exotic names here. Kali, Vasu, his friend is Karnan, Morali, I'm sure I'm butchering these names, apologies. But all we really have at stake is this choice of a life partner, because I don't really know what Vasu's.
Yeah, but the question I ask is, why would you keep reading?
Because I'm intrigued enough to try to understand a little bit more about this part of the world that I really know nothing about, and I would Google, which is usually my biggest compliment.
Yeah, I've never heard of Corral either. So, gang, those of you watching, what Katharine is saying is this: all this information lacks context. We don't even know if Kerala is fictional. I've never heard of it. I don't recognize the sort of national quality of the names Murali, Vasu, Jalaja. They certainly seem, tropical and exotic. But I think the issue for Katharine is the same as me. Is this lacks context. You throw out freedom fighter, and then that's the last we hear of it. You throw out the rain, and I don't understand, first of all, why somebody would have to bend down to roll up a window. That just stuck in my eye. But this is a typical, I'm just going to call it, mistake at the opening of a story, is to try to do so much that it feels blunt rather than sharp. What is here is it's father, son, it's exotic names, it's exotic places, it's raining, it's a description of the potholes, it is a story of a family, it's a story of, they talk politics, there's an argument at home about a life partner, there's an issue of an argument with the mother, there's 6 or 7 different topics that are hinted at in this opening, and none of them are followed through on. So what happens is when Katharine reads it and I read it, we're sent in different directions. We're sent freedom fighter, that's it. We're sent discussion with the mother about a life partner, gone. We're talking about a monsoon rains, and then we're doing world building about potholes, and then gone. And it all seems to fly off. Nothing seems to fly towards the middle, Katharine. Things seem to fly out from the middle. And when you open a story, you got one job, folks. That job is to beckon the reader in, to set a table for the reader and set them down to a meal of the story. It needs to be dynamic, meaning a car ride is almost never dynamic, almost never. Of all the places you could set a story in an opening, somebody chose to put it in a car. And there's not enough of a dynamic relation between the characters and the instrumentality or the world if it's a car. The only thing worse, by the way, is a phone call.
Or a dream.
Or a dream. Oh my, I couldn't even conceive starting with a dream. But the point stands that, to me, Katharine, I think you and I feel identical on this, is that I know where I am, but I don't know where that is. I know who I am, because I'm Vasu, but I don't know who that is. All I know is it's someone's son somewhere driving a car. I don't know. I don't see the hint of conflict. Now I know all that's coming. I know the writer and you folks are out there saying, well, what about page 2? I go, yeah. And Katharine, as an agent, will give this a shot at page 2. But I would clean this way up. And I would also reduce the use of the tool of narration. You know, does Vasu really think? But then who would dare hurt a freedom fighter beloved by the people? Is that what he's thinking? Riding in the car next to his dad, a man who sacrificed for his country. That's probably not what he's thinking. He's probably not thinking about the heated argument that Morali had with his mother the morning on the topic, all but guaranteed to know. That's not what's going on. The guy's driving through a monsoon on very bad roads with his father. And if there was an argument that morning about his life choices, argue about that and let the rest of us come to us organically. Page 5 to page 10, chapter 3. This feels, as they so often do to me, Katharine, when I read first pages, it feels forced. It feels like a shopping list, you know, of things and not one clean setting, one clean bit of tension. Yeah, that's my take. I would clean it up and focus on one thing.
I would just follow up to say, I think it's interesting that neither David nor I understood if it was a real place or a fictional place, which makes all the difference in a way. And that line, is your old revolver, Callie still working, bring her with you fully loaded. I at first thought the character Vasu was named Callie. Maybe the revolver has a name. But you see how when you have anything disconnected or confusing on page 1, it's all too easy for an agent to say, this looks like it needs some work.
That said, though, yes, absolutely. That said, sentence by sentence, somebody can write. This is, you know, it's not inartful language. The problem isn't the sentences; it's the structure, and it's the belief in the story itself. You don't have to throw it all into a wheelbarrow, folks, and dump it into page 1. You really don't. That's what this felt like to me. Yeah, focus it. Just focus it and let her fly. Good, Katharine. Moving on. All right. How about you read this one to me, darling?
Chapter 1, Zay. I wake up choking on my own vomit. I think I overdid it last night. My situation merits it. My situation merits more than chugging from a bottle of Jack and hoping for the best. I didn't get the best. I got dizzy. I got sick. I almost choked to death, and now I'm hungover. I scramble out of bed and charge for the washroom. I don't think my insides are done battling with the alcohol in them. I throw up again and groan, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. I look like death. If death had an image, my face would be the cover of it. Bags under my hazel eyes, red and watery, puke still caked to my neck and in my brown hair. I'm a mess. I stumble into the shower and let the water run, pouring over me in bursts of cold at first to wake me the heck up. Now it's warm, soaking into my chilled skin. I don't undress when I get in. I sit down and watch the water. David.
Okay. So it's problematic for me, Katharine, when an entire first page can be reduced to the sentence, I woke up hungover and took a shower. In effect, I woke up hungover and a mess and took a shower. They're breaking down the constituent parts of waking up drunk and taking a shower into moment by moment. Do not amplify it for me. I would remember, folks, when you're writing a story, even if it's first person, perhaps especially if it's first person, you are writing about character. You're not writing about what you do. You're writing about who your characters are. It was once said to me quite brilliantly that we are human beings, not human doings. Mm-hmm. And this is nothing but human doing. This is all, I woke up, I got dizzy, I got sick, I almost, I puked, I took a shower. And what does that say about the character? It says they drank. And it's generic. I don't know, so if I've got 5 million characters and I say, okay, which one of you does this describe? They all 5 million step forward. Because at some point we all did this. I don't know how this amplifies character. This just says somebody went out and got drunk. And I don't know where they are. I don't know what century this is. I don't know what nation, city, state this is. I don't know if this is male or female. I know nothing. This literally, insofar as 150 words can tell me nothing, this does, other than I got drunk, I woke up hungover, I took a shower. I don't know what what character trait is being explored here? Take it. Help me.
I would first suggest, and it's never for me to tell a writer what to think or what to write, but I think everything is captured and conveyed by this line. If death had an image, my face would be the cover of it. Bags under my hazel eyes, red and watery, puke still caked to my neck and in my brown hair. I get the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
And also it has, if not exactly the charm of the comedy of being hum over, we get it. If there's caked puke, say no more. You don't need that much more to make sure we get how incredibly gross and hungover this morning is. Dizzy and sick is a bit overdone, throwing up with a groan. We don't need this much. And remember, from an agent point of view, this is an important thing to convey. We're not thinking of the scope of the work. We're not thinking of chapter 2 and chapter 3 and chapter 4. We're looking at this page 1 as an audition. So for us, this audition is just to see what the writer's doing when in charge of this page. You have my attention, you have our attention. What you got? Are you funny? Are you charming? Are you sexy? Is there a sense of tension, an interesting use of dialogue? We're looking for elements and sparks and something. So if you have one line that does all the work, you don't need a whole page to keep driving home something about the state of the protagonist.
And first person is very difficult to do well, I posit. Very often first person turns into something like this, where it's almost oral, almost like it's being spoken to me. To me, there's not artistry to this, other than if death had an image. I think that's lovely. But I throw up again and groan, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. There's no real artistry to that. This language to me, I would, and Katharine, to repeat, I don't know if this is male, female, New York, LA, Beijing. I know I'm not gifted with any visual on this, because I can't even imagine the person who's suffering this, because I don't know, young, old, human, I don't know. Context, people, context. Your first page must establish the verities of the story. Who, what, when, where, why, how. And if you can, thread some tension or danger in there, some hint of it. Who, what we call it, the verities. Who, what, when, why, how, where. This answers really not a single one of those except for the what. And the what is temporal, because this is not the condition of the entire book. Somebody's not going to be hungover for the whole book, which would be a wicked cool book, by the way.
I think Charles Bukowski wrote that one.
Yeah. So this opening is not your opening. This may come up later, but whoever wrote this, guys, don't fall into the trap of thinking that because you can shock and say that puke is caked, that an agent or a writing teacher and editor like myself is going to be taken away by it. Katharine and I both believed that this was collapsible into one sentence. We picked different sentences. But yeah.
Let me quickly add. Sorry, David, did I step on your button?
Continue.
It's also important to realize that we're really we agent are always leaping to conclusions. So if I'm already thinking, is this a college kid, having his or her first bender, or is this going to be an odyssey of somebody who ends up in recovery because they're a genuine alcoholic? Where the hamster wheels are always turning. So you want to make sure that you're in control of that. If you're teasing a reader or you want them to go down in one direction and then you're going to, shift over to another, that's one thing. But you don't want it to be an open question, because this is either going to be a genuine portrait of an alcoholic or something else, or this was unexpected, or we're going to learn that somebody did this because they had a breakup or something motivated them to really tie one on. But it is important, even as early as page 1, to make sure that we're set firmly on that narrative path.
Curtain goes up, there's the stage, right? We want to see the stage. All right, Katharine, you ready for number 3?
Yep.
All right, I got it for you. Establishing shots. Interesting.
Hmm.
The wilds of Malibu. There are two Malibus, really. There's the sleepy, soft-hilled Malibu tucked gently under a quilt of celebrity manners, shopping malls, and summer homes. Then there's the untamed Malibu, the flesh of it, the wild, angular features and twitching knees and feet sticking out from under those covers, where you can feel the trees don't recognize you, or behold the rugged sandstone the way a kid does a yarn-spinning grandpa, enraptured by the story unfolding in the strata. Millions of years ago, Los Angeles was submerged. The ocean would be long and retreating too, leaving ghost lines across the local mountains. The land would shuffle into its dance, and the remains of those ancient marine life forms would be pulped into goo by subterranean pressure. Seismic activity would, in turn, squeeze this goo up to the ground, and presto, tar. Many millennia later, in one spot, that goo would be waiting for the odd mammoth, camel, or opportunistic saber-tooth. Prehistoric beast swallowed up by the even more prehistoric. This spot now rests off Wilshire Boulevard as a trove of fossils known as the La Brea tar pits. In 1914, the world met the La Brea woman, the only human the pits ever gave up. She was indigenous, about mid-20s when she died. Judging by her remaining teeth, she ate ground cornmeal. More interestingly, evidence on her skull suggested she'd been killed. Claw marks? Bite marks? No. Like the camels and the saber-tooths or deer and cougar, the situation could have been easy, but with people, it almost never is. The back of her head was fractured from a direct blow. Ooh, take it.
Well, there's a lot going on here that's eye-catching and provocative, I would agree. A couple of things just coming to me. I think I want to suggest that I think it would be stronger if you put paragraph 1 somewhere else, because we don't, I think when the camera comes in, which you say it's an established shot on Los Angeles, and then these two paragraphs work with the Los Angeles of millions of years ago. And as your camera turns to the La Brea woman, I think that's extremely interesting. I'd also suggest that you might find it interesting to cut at, like with camels and the saber-tooths or deer cougars, the situation could have been easy, but with people, it almost never is. I'd stop there because I'm already super engaged, because that's setting me up for the story, the plot. The Malibu paragraph to me seemed a bit overwritten. Malibu, I think, has a certain place in our imaginations. Those of us who've been there, or people who may not have immediately associated with the whole celebrity California beachy culture. So when we get very busy with the sandstone and the yarn spinning grandpa, we're not going anywhere where we're staying. That's interesting, in my opinion. But I like the kind of surety or authority of the writing as the camera comes into Los Angeles and starts talking to us about, the La Brea tar pits. And I understand this is somebody who knows this world and has interesting storytelling coming into into my screen. So those would be my suggestions. But the minute if you end with, but with people, it almost never is, I'm ready for the people. I'm totally primed to see who these people are that this story is going to showcase for me.
All righty. First of all, I don't know the genre of this. I don't know if this is fiction, because if it is, it's clearly noir. If it's nonfiction, I'd love to know if this is what this is the opening to. So I can't make much in the way of assumptions. I can just say two things, Katharine. Someone can write. I mean, in terms of sentence by sentence, it's quite splendiferous. Structurally, though, while I enjoyed it on a sort of, I was on a tour of discovery here. Like, oh, what odd, eclectic thought is going to be expressed next in what really genius way? It felt, I guess what I'm trying to say was I was pulled more through this by the quality of the prose and the inventiveness of the prose than I was the story. because I open up with, there are two Malibus. And then I go, okay, then there's the, and I know Malibu, so I'm in contemporary Malibu, and then I'm millions of years ago. And I wasn't ready for millions of years ago because I was enjoying the flesh of it, the wild angular features, the twitchy knees. And I'm thinking, oh, cool, someone's going to talk to me about Malibu. And then I got sent back to La Brea tar pits. And in all honesty, then I didn't even stay millions of years ago because then I jumped up to the 20th century. So I've got today early on, I got millions of years ago in the middle, and then I've got early 20th century in the third, all on the first page. And again, as much as I can say somebody can hang up a picture in the gallery of this opening page, I did feel it lacked focus. You know, I don't know. The opening is not about La Brea, and it's not about murder of an indigenous woman a million years ago, whatever. It's about Malibu, and then it's about LA, and then it's about a million years. And I would want somebody to take this gift, right? This gift they have for language. And please just tell me one thing. You know, the La Brea tar pits gave up an indigenous woman in 1914. She'd been killed. And like you said, then I'm going to go, ooh, that's where I am, who I am, what it's about. Let's go. I've said this now 3 times because this is the third story. Folks, don't stick everything you want to say into a wheelbarrow and dump it on the first page. I, as a teacher, I speak for Katharine, my dear and longstanding friend, as an agent. We want to know where we are. We want to be set in a seat, and we want the curtain to go up, and we want to see Act 1. I don't want to see Act 2, 3. Not everything is an overture. You know, I don't want to see Acts 1, 2, and 3 summed up for me in the first act. I want to see Act 1, right? And this felt like somebody said, "Oh no, I got all kinds of things to tell." This looks like a fun story, and I'm with you. I would read page 2, if for nothing else, just to see how interestingly somebody would express themselves. This is marvelously inventive, but I'm afraid it feels a little bit like a spooked bird out of a tree. Like I don't know what direction it's going to go. I just know it's going to fly. And watching somebody who can write and take flight is its own joy. But whoever you are out there, or if you're writing like this, please, folks, and I'm sure, Katharine, you agree, focus your first page. It's as Katharine says, it's not only an audition for an agent, it's an audition for the reader, right? Convince me that of your world and your story. This was too many worlds and too many stories, though wonderfully done piece of the time. What do you think?
I would add, there's definitely a cleverness here that would get me to page 2.
Oh yeah, page 2 damn well better focus. I mean, you got to bring this plane. Just remember, I'll leave you guys with this before we go to page 4. Ella Fitzgerald, the great jazz singer, once said that the blues is about the notes you do not sing. And I would say to somebody, there have to be some notes here you don't sing. Don't do it all at once, but be able to do it. This was interesting. Cool. Well done. Number 4, Katharine?
Yep.
Would you read to me, please?
Day 1 on the ward. It's a cold hospital room with an even colder, stiff, twin-sized bed with limited covering. I guess it makes sense considering the concern of patients hanging themselves with the sheets. I remember a few suicide files at my old job where that happened. I knew I should have come in the past for my mental illness and suicidal thoughts, but I never did. I was too embarrassed and ashamed to come, but I had no choice this time. This was a life or death situation. I don't understand. I thought I was happy. How did I end up here? Goodbye, Mom. Molly, Molly, cries my older brother, Miles, violently shaking me out of my after-school nap. Come upstairs. Something's wrong with Mom. Half asleep, I follow him as fast as my 8-year-old legs could carry me. She was just released from the hospital a few months ago for having heart issues and seemed healthy. Last night, she was moving and smiling. She was talking and laughing. She was breathing. Today, she is still, lifeless on the bed I shared with her the night before. Anna, Mom, Mommy, wake up, sings a chorus of my my two brothers and father's voices. We shook her cold body, moved her locked legs, and splashed water on her unresponsive face. But all were futile attempts to jolt a response. An air of permanent silence now radiated from her body in a language only death understood. I don't know what woman lies on this bed, but she's not my mother anymore.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. This one's easy. First of all, cut the entire opening. There's no place here. That's just telling us. That's telling. We don't need to start there. Let's start with Molly. Molly cries, my older brother. I found nothing, no reason to be told. Nothing happens in the first four lines except somebody narrating to me. They're talking directly to me to sum up the story. I cut those lines. Now let's move down to Goodbye Mom. I think I would, unless Goodbye Mom is the name of a chapter, I would cut that. So yeah, a child discovering their mother has become unresponsive, and then death. That's a powerful place. That's a powerful door to ask your reader to step through. It's very powerful. So here's a few notes for that, which I like. I saw the verb to be more than I like. She was just released. She was moving and smiling. She was talking, laughing. She was breathing. Today she is still. I like to challenge my writers, but all were futile attempts. She is not my mother anymore. I like to challenge my writers to select more dynamic verbs. When I see was as much as I see here, I'm worried that I don't have a writer on my hands. I have somebody who's just aching to tell a story, and the language seems to be just the device for getting in their way. I want to see somebody overtly crafting powerful language. And she was talking, she was breathing. Today she is still. That's just, for me, that's a bit of a red flag. The other thing that I would say is the reaction to finding your mother dead was a bit muted. We see you, this person, discovering the mother, but I'm not inside this character discovering the mother. In other words, I see the act, but I don't see the impact. An air of permanent silence radiates from her body in a language only death understood. That's beautiful language, but I don't know what woman lies on this bed, but she's not my mother anymore. This character discovering the mother, Catherine, is really only an observer in this scene. I don't feel this character being a participant or an agent in this at all. I'm not seeing this character take any action, feel anything that I find profound. I'm with someone when they shake a cold body, they move the locked legs, they splash face, and then they say, and she's dead. And I want to see a child, an 8-year-old child, see their mother, to not to experience it, but to explore it is what I'm looking for. This feels to me like a child is experiencing the act of finding the dead mother, but I'm not finding an exploration of shock or instant grief or disassociation or disbelief. It feels like, look, she's dead, and here's some pretty language, but I want to know this writer is going to explore, okay, she's dead. Most people who are dead today were talking and laughing and breathing yesterday. Today she's lifeless. And I'm not finding that a particularly insightful observation that she wasn't dead yesterday, which is kind of really, this doesn't go much further than that. But take it.
I'm somewhat suspecting that this is memoir, not fiction, but I'm not certain. And I agree with David that it's two completely different narratives, and you can't really do that on page one. I think I speak for most agents when I say that the telling and showing that you always hear about in writing craft classes, saying, I should have come in the past for my mental illness and suicidal thoughts, that's such telling. this is someone telling me, I believe in a memoir context, or it's a protagonist, I had mental illness and suicidal thoughts. The fact that it's baldly said like that, it works against showing that there's someone who is either going to dramatize a character in the throes of mental illness and suicidal ideation, or someone who's personally going to share an account, a powerful story of what that meant for them. But I think it's pure telling. And then I think what's true about many agents is that when you have a complete disconnect on a page one, we don't see that authority. We don't really feel like the reins are being held by the author. So a couple of other things are working against you here. Goodbye, Mom. That seems a little flip to me. And also it gives it away, and then we understand this is, I guess, a memory, possibly real life, of what it was like to be 8 and find the lifeless body of your mother or the character's mother. I would almost suggest that the first line, I don't know what woman lies on this bed, but she's not my mother anymore, is incredibly powerful. I would be arrested by that line. And then ending with the line that David pointed out, permanent silence, now aided from her body in a language only death understood. I would feel tremendous power in those lines. But you've also got, tremendous complexity in having a mother who has an illness, possibly also suicidal. She was released from the hospital, maybe not suicidal, but you've got 2 hospital dramas basically playing out, and we don't yet know the brothers, the father, the speaker. We have no idea who anyone is. It's always trickier, I think, to have someone's death depicted when we don't have a feeling for who has died. Obviously, the weight of an 8-year-old's mother dying, we get that intellectually, but if you're going to do something as powerful as a death scene, you want to make sure that there's not a dry eye in the room. You don't want to just dispatch it, which is kind of good. Pardon me, David?
Oh, I'm saying, well, and dispatch it and just simply describe it. That was why it's like, okay, I'm fine with the mother being passed away, but there's nothing other than overt external observations. She was talking, now she's not. She was breathing, now she's not. She was my mother, now she's not. And I don't think I don't feel this character's pathos. I feel
so it's an 8-year-old. So, sorry, I stepped on you there, David.
Go.
I mean, we get that there's a shift in ages here, and that this is a profound memory. But if this is a memoir, and if the idea is to show us why the mental illness was exacerbated, and this profound moment, as it is for any of us, to see your mother's lifeless body, it's just a cosmic, universal experience for many of us. But you want to show how it's, dare I say, distinctive enough, but in a story context, because we've got, in a sense, 2 different time periods, 2 different stories. But what we're looking for, if this is memoir, but it's true for fiction as well, is the power of observation. So we get the telling in the first paragraph, followed by one moment of discovery. And I think there are ways to serve you more depending on what the goal of this piece is.
Yeah, great point. Now, here's a small one. No typos, folks. Anna, Mom, Mommy, wake up, sings a chorus of my 2 brothers. A typo on page 1 does not set you up for success, because an agent or an editor is going to look at it and go, well, I'm reading this more carefully than you did. Right? So don't allow typos, certainly not on page 1. Just don't do that. All right, good. Now, and I want to also say something about the last piece, the Malibu piece. You used the word authority a couple of times. That felt very authoritative. That felt very knowing. I did feel in that Malibu piece I was in the hands of somebody that knows how to drive. I'm like, okay, stop weaving, but you do know how to drive. And I want to feel that when I read a first page, especially. I want to get the sense like, oh, I'm in the hands of an authoritative, powerful, confident storyteller who does not have typos.
Well, authority for me means exactly that, but it's also someone who has a story to tell.
One story at a time.
But a story to tell, and they have a vision for that story, and a vehicle for that story, and language for that story. David loves to quote, I don't know who it said it, stories happen to storytellers.
Yeah,
And
Thucydides.
who's
I love
that?
saying that. Thucydides. I have no idea
Oh,
what that is.
yeah.
One of the things I pull out to make myself look smart.
Well,
I shave my head because bald men are smart. Now, and just before we go, I know. So thinking out there, the readers, and perhaps the writers saying, "Well, come on, the kid's 8 years old. How much can the kid understand about death?" Right? Because I'm complaining that the child is only observing, not internalizing or expressing grief and those things. And I would answer that, say, well, then don't pick an 8-year-old. I mean, if characters that don't understand emotion and don't understand the world don't make good POVs. I mean, if your point of departure for an 8-year-old POV is that, well, he's not going to understand. He's going to poke his mom and go, "Mom, wake up! I don't know why you're still laying there." I'm like, okay, that might be authentic, but why would you pick that kid to tell me the story? I don't want to be in the guise of an unfeeling a POV or someone who doesn't understand the world. So you don't get a pass on empathy because it's an 8-year-old POV. Still have to make me feel, me the reader. Still have to have profound truths. Good. Now, ready for the next one?
Yes.
Read me a tale, Catherine. Read me a story. Ooh, I like this.
Snakes and demons and creatures from hell. Deep within the cave of sorrows, a crimson light bathed the rugged walls, casting an eerie glow. Suspended in midair, the amulet of Gorgon radiated with a mesmerizing intensity, its crimson hues painting the cavern's interior. William Tome, a frail 23-year-old journeyman, extended his trembling hands towards the amulet. On his left wrist, a small burlap sack dangled, ready to receive its prize. Come on, come on, come on, he muttered, his fingers twitching as he edged closer to the artifact. His breath quickened as he inched closer, his right forefinger brushing the amulet's surface. Yes, that's it, he whispered. In an instant, the room erupted in a searing burst of yellow light. Ah, William recoiled, his face contorted in pain, and the amulet began to spin wildly. Blood oozed from his fingertip, dripping onto the cave floor. The amulet continued its frenzied spin, gaining speed. Oh, shoot! Come on, William urged, determination in his eyes. He straightened up and grasped the burlap bag with both hands, attempting to capture the elusive amulet. Drawing the bag closer, the amulet spun even faster, forcing him to keep it in his peripheral vision. That's it, baby, he encouraged himself, inching closer to his goal. The amulet's bottom was barely an inch away. With a sudden jerk, William yanked the bag upward, attempting to ensnare the amulet. But the moment the cloth touched the artifact, it leapt out and escaped the bag.
Okay, so a couple things. POV. I'm gonna, there's things to like here. I'm gonna just kind of sand it down a bit. So William Tome, a frail 23-year-old journeyman. I challenge, to whom is he a frail 23-year-old journeyman? What's the POV on that? That's just, folks, listen up. This, anytime the story speaks directly to the reader, bypasses the POV on the page and talks directly to me, that's called narration. And that's a no-go. That's a no-fly zone. So William Tome, he doesn't think of himself as William Tone. He's William, or he's Tone. But he doesn't think of himself as his full name. He does not think of himself as a frail 23-year-old journeyman. He does not aware that his face is contorted in pain. He doesn't know what his face is doing. He doesn't know that he has determination in his eyes. How does he know his eyes are determined? So you've got some POV issues you can clean up very easily. But I want you to understand that you do damage to the POV if you tell the reader be outside the POV looking at him. So when you tell me what William Tome's eyes are doing, you're telling me get outside him and look back at William. Because it's the only way to know what his eyes are doing, is from outside him. And then while I'm looking at his eyes, I'm thinking about his full name or that he's journeyman, he's 23 years old. When you do that, when you make those mistakes, POV mistakes, you tell the reader, get outside and look back at this POV. And that does damage to the reader's attachment to the POV. Be careful with that. You do a nice job with the opening. Crimson light bathed rugged walls, an eerie glow, suspended in midair, the amulet of Gorgon, mesmerizing intensity, crimson hues, the cavern's intense interior, and then the cavern is gone. It's gone. Now I'll give you guys another tip about world building. The further you get, every step you get from the known, every step you get from New York City, which is known, or every town USA, which has Bank Street, Church Street, School Street, and Broad Street, and Central Street, and Park Street, and Mom and Apple Pie and the Little League field. The further you get from the known, your reader's familiarity, every step away is a step you must give back to the reader in world building. When you go into the future, you have to build the future. The point of going into the future is to spin for the reader an unfamiliar world. The point of giving me the Cave of Sorrows and the Amulet of Gorgon is to take me somewhere I'm not familiar with, right? That's the whole science fiction and fantasy have as a major reason for their existence is world building. You must create a world. Here, you said goodbye to the world after the first sentence and a half. And now all I know is cave, amulet of Gorgon, and crimson light. And then we focus on William, and we focus on the amulet, the burlap bag. But that's it. That's all I know. So guys, get back in here and thread through this narrative, some cliffs and some echoes and some bats and some strata in the walls and some shifting light and capillaries of caves going off this central chamber, and let me be in the room with William because it's foreign and because it's exotic and made up, your reader cannot envision it. I can envision a car ride by a park because I've seen parks and I've seen roads and I've seen cars. I've never seen the Cave of Sorrow. So because I haven't seen it, Katharine, I can't envision it. And my inability to envision it does damage to my ability to be in this scene. World building is so important. In the more exotic you make your scenes, future, past, fantasy, horror, all those things. If you give me a castle in a made-up world or a cave in a made-up world, you've got to build it because I can't make guesses. So for me, Katharine, as much as I enjoy the sort of Dungeons and Dragons adventure of this, I want somebody to get back in there and make it so I can see it. You have blood oozing from his finger, dripping onto the floor, and you have him not cognizant of it. His blood is oozing so much, Katharine, it drips onto the floor. That's not a small amount of blood. Yet he's not in any pain. He's not cognizant of it. He's still using that hand, which is now wounded. So if you're going to wound the guy, wound him. Have him react to it. Like now he's got to go left-handed, which makes it even worse, right? More difficult to do. I don't feel that this writer, is completely present in this world in the effort to build it. I would say back up, because it's cool. I like it, right? And somebody can write a sentence. I mean, somebody knows what they're doing. I would say back up, see it, and remember this. Write this down. Don't know your story so well you forget to tell it. And that's what's happened here. Is somebody knows this world so well they forget to tell me about it. Do that, and you can transport me right into this cool adventure, sister.
Well, I think
that's never good.
We certainly get the moment of William and the amulet, but there's, for me, a kind of missed opportunity because we open on this Cave of Sorrows with the eerie glow and the amulet of Gorgon, and I'm now ready to be transported into this magical place, and that never quite happens because William's chasing the amulet with his burlap bag, and a few things are throwing me here. Because echoing what David was saying about world building, you have to remember an agent is always thinking, what would I say about this author to an editor? if I'm calling somebody up to say, oh, this was fascinating, where do you see the scene in the Cave of Sorrows? Where am I drawing from? What am I drawing on? So it's vital to showcase a world. And we get a kind of, modern guy. He's frail. I'm not quite sure what a journeyman is. His name is William, which is a name in our world. And he's talking as if he is someone in our world, come to Papa, that's it, baby, kind of stuff. So it opens on this note of, have I got a world for you? And then it doesn't go there. And then the amulet, it has all this power, but there's a kind of missing story logic for me. It radiates intensity. It can somehow the room can erupt in a searing burst of yellow light. I don't know if that means it can be a time portal or it has some kind of magical powers, other than the fact that we are watching it escape the bag. It doesn't want to get caught, but is it sentient? What is Gorgon? There are the Gorgons of mythology. I don't know if those tie in. So what I'm left thinking is this is a little undercooked, a little underdone, even though there's some interesting writing and clearly a fine imagination.
I love that phrase, undercooked. The moment you said that, that's the image I'm looking for. I have, just a step further, I have a room that is erupted. So use the word erupted, searing burst of yellow light. I have room recoil, contorting in pain. And that's it. It's the last we hear of it. We are no longer reacting to the yellow light. We're no longer aware of the pain that it causes us or the debilitation of, obviously the yellow light is a defense mechanism of this cave to protect its amulet, yet he's not aware of it. So the writer bothers to tell us about a searing burst of yellow light, but then doesn't use it. The writer tells us that he's cut his finger so badly it oozes from his fingertip onto the cave floor, so much so that he's cognizant of the blood dripping onto the floor, yet it doesn't bother him. And that's, I think undercooked is perfect, Katharine, because there's ingredients here that do not mature, right? I've got the Cave of Sorrows, but how is it sorrowful? How is the cave itself sorrowful? It ain't the yellow light. It's not that the talisman will cut you because he doesn't react to any of it. He's just like, come on, baby, come on, baby.
It's so important to remember. Oh, sorry, David.
No, I was going to agree with you that I was thrown by the contemporary vernacular. Come on, come on, come on. That's it, baby. Shoot. That's just, two O's instead of an I. That's our language. And so the guy, it's oddly contemporary, and oddly American contemporary for being in the Cave of Sorrows. So, this feels like fantasy, or clearly is fantasy, but I don't know. Again, it just feels like somebody dumping a lot in the opening scene. 23-year-old, he's frail, he's a journeyman, his hands are trembling. But if he's trembling, he doesn't sound like he's trembling. He sounds quite confident. Come on, baby, come on, baby. He's able to push through the yellow light. He's able to push through the blood on his hands. Yet he's frail and he's trembling. And I don't really, undercooked is how that feels. And it's too bad and easily fixed. Get back in here, make William somebody that you recognize, that right? If he's frail and he's a journeyman and his hands are trembling, then give me a dude whose hands are trembling. Somebody who's just not up to the task. Just, he's overreaching and he's going to get his butt kicked. Or give me some bad dude who says things like, come on, baby, But he felt undercooked.
I just quickly add, it's important to remember, general point, how much we don't know. So the fact that this is some kind of showdown, or that this is his dream, or that this is going to save his people, we don't know any of it. So there's a lot of attention paid to the amulet escaping the burlap sack, but none of the stakes are here. None of them. And that really costs you in something like fantasy, because if you, of course, what comes to mind is Frodo in the ring. We spend 3 books waiting for him to get to Mount Doom with that ring, but we always know what's at stake from the get-go. for everybody. And so the amulet's power is a bit lost for me. It's really out of view. It's a guy running with a burlap bag. He's not yet, someone who's come into focus. And then references to things like the light or like even being a journeyman. How is he frail as a journeyman? So I don't even know what that's about. It's lost to our view is what I'm saying. And you want it to be center stage because that's where the yes or the no is going to come up. 1 page, 2 pages, that's all an agent gives you to see if they want to say yes to reading 50.
And the great accomplishment of Tolkien is Middle Earth, is the world building, his own language. I would dedicate this whole first page to the world and have William walk into it and crack his knuckles and go, let's go. And then we're set. I'm ready. I've got the world. I've got the stakes. I know the place and setting.
I don't know that. Sorry, Dave. I don't know that this is page 1 necessarily because it seems an odd place to jump in when we have no idea what it took to get to the Cave of Sorrows or even why it is the Cave of Sorrows.
Or why Gorgon has an amulet. I always thought Gorgon was a bracelet kind of guy. So
we don't know if it's that Gorgon. It could be a place.
Because I don't see Gorgon with a plunging neckline. It just.
That's another book.
Okay. Well, I think that's the end of our. That's the end of our pages. Yeah.
It is. Thank you for joining us.
Go to, where do we say that this is the Critiki-Bar, and I want to thank Black Chateau for inviting us and having us do this. One thing Katharine and I failed to say is that she and I are very old friends, and we argue about these things all the time. But I thought today we agreed and saw a lot of pieces that we saw promise in. Katharine, if I could say one thing, across the 6 pieces we wrote and across most of the teaching and editing I do, it's not the writing, it's not the sentence by sentence. Yeah, people that aspire to write books, first of all, can usually craft language. It's almost always design. It's always, and if it's design, and it also seems to be a lack of confidence, wanting to get everything into that first page, not trusting the story, not trusting enough to say, hello, I'm a story. Just say hello, settle me down, put me in my seat, let me hear some music, raise the curtain. And I will tell you guys this in parting. When people tell you to grab the reader, that's not good advice. You knock on my door and I open it, you grab me, we're going to have a problem. Knock on my door and let me invite you in. Invite the reader in. You don't have to drag your reader in with 5 different things and a nefarious amulet and a bad husband and a coma and 5 different historical millennia in LA. Invite the reader in. That's the most important thing you can do, is tell Katharine, the agent who's going to pass it on to an editor somewhere, invite your reader in. Figure out whatever that means in your lexicon, but don't think you have to grab us. Don't think we need a car crash. Don't think we need splendiferous language about millions of years ago. Get the very strong sense that you've opened the door and say, hey, Mr. Reader, please come in. And then let's not play Wii tennis and smoke a bong. Let's sit and have some tea and some cheese plates and make the reader comfortable in the world. Where am I? Who am I? What's going on? Why am I here? The verities. Settle the reader into the metaphysical chair. Share the fictive dream of the story. Share the story. Don't think you have to surprise us or shock us or set us back on our heels. Invite us into your story. That's the ticket. You agree?
Absolutely. Always fun to do this with you, David. Thank you all for listening.
Katharine Sands of the Sarah Jane Fryman Agency. I'm David L. Robbins, author and teacher. This has been the Critiki-Bar, and we thank you for your time and attention. Hope it was worth it.
Aloha.
Aloha.